Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is BestInSlot and my co-host Liddy with the inaugural episode of Pangaea Today, a brand new weekly series where what we're going to do is we're going to analyse, or at least take a look at, the biggest paleontological news stories of the week. This week there's only really one story to talk about, so we're going to talk briefly about the series and the plan for the series. I am trying out this green screen for the first time, so I apologise if it's a little bit of a mess. That's hopefully going to get better with a little bit of practice. I've got my news sheet, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the story. All the links that I used to research this story, in this case just the scientific article for the story, can be found down below in the description, along with any references I've used for the pictures that you should see popping up throughout this video, because I'm a professional. So, what are we going to talk about this week? Well, we are going to talk about something pretty exciting, which is the discovery of the largest feathered winged dinosaur ever. Now, I say that it's the largest well-preserved feathered winged dinosaur ever. We're going to get into that, but that's the headline. Largest well-preserved winged feathered dinosaur. This is I'm going to have to look at my sheet, I'm afraid. I don't know this off by heart. Maybe I'll put it over there. So this is a new member of the... Again, my pronunciations may be a little messy. I've tried to find these online and I struggled, but we'll give it a go. This is a member of the Liaoning Dromaeosaurids. The Dromaeosaurids is obviously quite a big clada of many feathered. Velociraptor was a Dromaeosaurid. Deinonychus, blah blah blah. That kind of theropod. Typically feathered, typically long forelimbs and stuff. Sorry about this. Stuff. I'm very professional. Long forelimbs, stuff like that. These are a set of Dromaeosaurids, all discovered in the Liaoning province in China. Now, this is a huge paleontological site, very well known, very famous for Dromaeosaurids, particularly many avian-style dinosaurs. And there's a group of dig sites, 3 or 4 dig sites, all contained within what's known as the Jehu group. Which is an old name for one of the provinces nearby. So this is a brand new dinosaur within that group. There's 5 others in there, which we're going to talk about briefly, but you should be able to see a picture of our new dinosaur, which is the, I'm going to try this, Zhenwanlong Suni, otherwise known as Zhenwan's dragon. That's what the name means. Very exciting, because you can kind of see why. It's a large winged creature, and people have always said that the myth of dragons and this idea of dragons, particularly in China, because obviously the dragon myth is very popular in China, came from this discovery of so many Dromaeosaurid dinosaurs, because they've got wings, they're large, and you know, if you're just looking at the skeleton, you can kind of see how people could misconstrue it as reptilian with the claws and everything like that. So that obviously led to the idea of dragons and appearing. So as a testament to that, we have Zhenwanlong Suni, or Zhenwan's dragon. So why are these important? Well, for a start, one reason this whole area is important, this Liaoning district, is because these dinosaurs, the Deinonychuses and Velociraptors and Microraptors and the Changyu raptor and all this kind of stuff, I am checking my notes for that one, they show this transition between dinosaurs at the time and modern avian dinosaurs. Obviously we know now that birds today are dinosaurs. All birds are dinosaurs. So people get this idea that dinosaurs evolved into birds, which isn't really necessarily what happened, because birds are still dinosaurs. Birds are simply a class of small avian dinosaur by and large. But these dinosaurs typically show that kind of that transition between dinosaurs at the time and modern avian birds, with the wings and the long forelimbs, you know, which would become typical wings, prevalence of feathers, shorter hind limbs, all this kind of stuff. And obviously many other characteristics between dinosaurs and birds, which we'll go into later. So I'm going to read some stuff here. So this was an early Cretaceous dinosaur, as all of them were at the time. There's a good chance these could have all lived together, all the 6 we're going to talk about in a second. They could have lived apart, but given that we know modern birds, I'm looking out the window to see if I see a pigeon, we know modern birds, you know, many species of birds can live together in harmony. There's no particular reason why these avian-style dinosaurs couldn't have done the same. It was actually a lot bigger. This is why this one isn't particularly important. It's a lot bigger than the others contained within the Liaoning Dromaeosaurids, at about 126.6 centimeters long. It wasn't a huge dinosaur, let's be honest, but compared to the others, which were more about the size of a house cat, it definitely stood out. The only one it wasn't bigger than one was Tianyu raptor, but the reason this, for a start, Tianyu raptor doesn't have a particularly well preserved specimen. We don't have a Tianyu raptor that shows prevalence of feathers. The feather morphology hasn't been preserved, unfortunately. So that's why this is being hailed as the best preserved specimen of a large Dromaeosaurid. But it's bigger than, what else do we have in the group? We have Changyu raptor. Oh, my handwriting is so bad. Microraptor, Sinornithosaurus, and Graciloraptor. I can't read what I wrote there, I do apologise. But those were the 4 smaller house cat-sized Dromaeosaurids, and they were very important because those 4 really showed how dinosaurs would become what we know as modern dinosaurs, birds. They were very small, about the size of a house cat, so you imagine a typical pigeon or a chicken. In particular, they were about chicken-sized. They had very long forelimbs, which become wings, and quite shorter hind limbs, and prevalence of feathers, all this stuff that we'd associate with modern birds eventually. Like I said, Tianyu raptor was larger, but Tianyu raptor doesn't have this well-preserved specimen. The size, however, is not the only differentiating characteristic. Despite the large size of these creatures, both Zhenwanlong and Tianyu raptor have very short forelimbs, which is very strange for these Dromaeosaurid dinosaurs. The other 4 that I just mentioned all have very long forelimbs, and that very clearly shows this transition into modern avians. But these 2 are different. They're larger in size, and their actual wingspan, particularly in the in the Zhenwanlong Suni, the wingspan was massive, but comparatively the actual arms were very short. In terms of wingspan to body length, it was actually about the same as a Microraptor. Microraptor is very much hailed as the best example we have, to an extent, of this transition from dinosaurs to modern dinosaurs. It's it's very bird-like in a lot of ways, including the long wingspan, but it also had the long arms to maintain that wingspan. And though we don't think Microraptor flew, it was definitely on the verge of maybe being able to do so. Thing, however, Zhenwanlong Suni definitely couldn't fly. I mean, there's going to be testing to clarify this 100%, but given the tiny size of the arms and the huge wingspan, the chance of it being able to support that body weight is very, very low. So we have to start looking at the wings for other purposes, basically. Why did Zhenwanlong Suni and Tianyu raptor have these massive wingspans and this prevalence of feathers? Because they clearly weren't developing into something that could fly. They don't have the long arms characteristic of the things that we know would eventually become avian dinosaurs, so why did they have them? And also, there's 2 main trains of thought. There may be others, but the 2 that stick out to me is, for one, display. We know a lot of birds are particularly colourful for display purposes. We know a lot of creatures use bright colours or prominent displays for mating, basically, to attract a mate. So there's a good chance that they'd be very colourful creatures, and the one with the most beautiful plumage would be able to attract the most attractive mate, or the most viable mate for little baby people. Baby dinosaurs, probably not baby people, that'd be a little bit weird. However, there is another train of thought which kind of relies on things like, ostriches, for example, have big wings, but they don't fly. And that's because a lot of birds like that, they actually use the wings as a way of balancing whilst running. You put the wings out, and it's like when you're walking along a tightrope and you're holding a stick. The stick helps. I don't want to say why it helps, because it's something about centering gravity or something like that. Either way, the stick helps you maintain balance. And it's the same kind of concept. So there's a chance that, particularly given the large wingspan but very short arms, that these wings could have been helped to balance the Zhenwanlong Suni as it ran around and hunted, and etc, etc. Do I have any other notes? Yeah, so this is very exciting because it's the first example we have of feather morphologies, as in the characteristics of feathers on a dinosaur, on a short-armed Dromaeosaurid. And that really just sticks out in total into how we know these dinosaurs developed. It doesn't really make sense as to why this dinosaur would exist. The only idea is that it had to develop these wings for a different purpose. But the fact that it lived with the Microraptor and other such dinosaurs that show this more clear progress into modern avian dinosaurs makes it a very strange situation. It's also causing headaches for many paleontologists, because they're not really sure how to classify it in the phylogenetic tree. Now I'm going to flash up the phylogenetic tree now, and you can see its relation to other fairly well-known creatures. nearby, how it's developed along the chain. Phylogenetic trees are, I don't have time to go through it now, it's quite, it requires a little bit of time to explain. It's a fantastic way of looking at evolution, and it's a fantastic way of classifying creatures, and it's thanks to phylogenetic trees that we know that birds are actually dinosaurs, and that we should refer to them as such, because they're within the same clade. I will explain phylogenetic trees in a future episode, not of this, but I'll do like a little thing, and we'll try to talk it through, and hopefully explain phylogenetic trees to absolutely everybody out there. Do I have anything else to say? I think that's it. So to sum up, Zhenwan Longsuni, discovered in the Liaoning district in China, part of the Jehu group of dig sites, is essentially a really important discovery for what is still a big, talking point amongst paleontologists, which is this transition from dinosaurs, avian-style dinosaurs, to actual avians that we have these days, modern dinosaurs, effectively. And it kind of throws everyone for a loop a little bit, because it doesn't really make sense in that transition. It doesn't have the characteristics of the long arms that we would naturally associate. It also raises the question of why it would have these feathers in the first place, because this dinosaur was covered in feathers, except in one location, which again is causing problems. I forgot to mention this. The hind legs, on the Zhenwan Longsuni didn't have any feathers, at least it didn't in the fossil samples found. We don't have enough examples to say this definitively, but for now at least there was no feathers found on the hind limbs. Now all the other dinosaurs in the Liaoning district, Dromaeosaurids, actually showed feathers on these hind limbs, so it kind of separates it out a little bit. Likewise, Zhenwan Longsuni and Tanyuraptor are obviously quite similar in a lot of ways. They are much larger than the other Dromaeosaurids, and they both had these shorter forelimbs. However, they still aren't differentiated enough to be a separate sort of group from the others, as you can see from the phylogenetic tree before. So the whole tree in that area is getting a little bit messy, and the people are still working on it, trying to decide where everything kind of falls together. But either way, it's very exciting for just further research into avian-style dinosaurs, and hopefully the prominence of creatures such as this, and giving it a name that means dragon, is quite a cool thing, and hopefully that will raise the awareness of feathered dinosaurs and the acceptance of feathered dinosaurs a little bit more to the general public. I'm going to do one more sweep of my notes to see if I've missed anything. No. So if you want to get more information, if this video didn't help you in the slightest, I will link the full article down below in the description. You should, at least I could, without any credentials, be able to log in. You don't have to log in at all, what am I on about? You should be able to just click the link and access and download the full PDF if you want. You can read all, you'll get all the measurements, you'll get various more pictures and comparisons, and you'll get the deep detail. This is a good overview. And the reason, this kind of shows why I want to do this series, I couldn't get all this information from online articles. General websites, a lot of websites have reported on this dinosaur, even IGN has reported on this dinosaur, because it's quite a close relative of Velociraptor, as you can see from the phylogenetic tree, and with Jurassic World just coming out, people are quite excited about dinosaurs. However, none of them have really talked about its place in this phylogenetic tree, or its relevance to modern avian dinosaurs, blah 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 blah. And whilst the article itself, this scientific journal, does go through that, that's a lot more inaccessible to people who maybe didn't do a degree in science. I spent 4 years reading scientific journals every bloody day of my life. So this is what I want to do with this series. I want to break down that information, provide a bit more information than general online articles, without the higgledy-piggledy of scientific journals. Now, I've got no idea if this worked. I'm sitting here, very first episode, no idea what's gone on. It may be awful. Those of you watching this for the first time, I want you to, post, well, of course you're watching this for the first time, post in the comments below, tell me what you think could be improved, tell me how I can change. I think I maybe need to slow down a little bit, be a little bit more understandable. And I just want to say, just stick with me. This will get better and better over time. And hopefully next week we'll maybe have more than one news story. I'm going to expand a little bit into more paleontological life, or just old nature in general. But it is always going to be that week's news. A lot of people have asked me to report on things like the Spinosaurus redesign, stuff like that. That will be done in videos when I do sort of like I'm going to call it a Dino Dossier. That's not going to be the title, but let's call it a Dino Dossier in the future. But for now, Pangaea Profile. There we go. Pangaea Profile. When I do one of those down the line, or Paleolithic Profile or something, when I do those down the line, we can talk about things like the adapted Spinosaurus and stuff like that, and people will have to vote on what dinosaur you want to see evaluated next. I think that's all I've got to say. So thank you very much for joining me for the inaugural episode of Pangaea Today. Lydia would like to thank you as well. I'm going to have to really learn what sloths properly sound like, because going every time is just a little bit weird. Thank you for joining me. Cheers. Much love. As always. Bye-bye.